Okay, the live stream is back up.
Okay. So everybody ready? We'll go back into the open session. New business, is that agreement?
Yes. Everyone have a copy of the contract, the Grayson County VATI contract?
No.
Do they all have copies of it?
Yeah, they have them in the pack.
Yeah. It's on here.
So this is something that we're doing through, with DHCD to enhance our ability to provide the not internet services, but this helps us with our broadband project, and it's a grant that we have received, and we are looking for your approval to move ahead with this contract.
How, if I may, has Lockerbie reviewed this? I mean, when did we get it?
What date? Around what
yeah,
date?
I mean, the date of this thing being effective is 4 days ago, and so, according to this.
Yeah.
But the first question is, similar to what we did with the franchise agreement, has Lockerbie or Steve or anybody taken a look at this thing?
Steve has reviewed this.
Steve?
Yes, He's reviewed this in the last 48 hours.
Okay. It says 15 October is the effective date. And so, but we know that the broadband project's not really gonna kick off until about December because of what APCO's, doing.
Right.
Well, the body, once we sign this, we've got a year to do everything that this thing says.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna really be able to do anything for about another 2 months, 45 days.
I hear you.
So what I'm wondering, the first question is, can we get an extension or can we get that effective date changed to honor about the 1st of December? Which then would mean we don't have a completion date till 1 December.
Yeah.
And we know that APCO is gonna take about 12 to 18 months to get the fiber in. Could be, we hope it's faster, but, that's what they're saying.
Right.
And then Michael's gotta do some things and all that, but as far as the agreement goes, I'm wondering if we could get that date shifted is first question.
I think. Hey, Carl.
Yes, sir.
Can you answer that question?
I can run that by Tammy Bresky to make sure it's that we can do that, and I would have to get back with
I think that
the
makes a
board
lot of
on
sense.
that.
And for consistency, since Lockerbie is working all our broadband stuff, should he not be the one that
Okay.
reviews it?
That would be
Just
fine.
for consistency, because that gets me to the next point. Under these grant activities, there's 3 things that say we're gonna do. But the best of my knowledge, Carl will correct me, but I don't know that we've seen a deployment plan. I'm thinking those 3 things came out of the original body application from August of 2019.
Correct. A lot of that's in the agreement was stipulations of what we when we designed when we applied for the BATI grant, and
Right.
like the reporting and stuff is ongoing.
Right, but the 14 months have transpired between when we put in that application, and there's been a lot of planning done. And so, for example, it says we're gonna put in, fixed wireless networks of 2 small towers and 22 microsites, but I haven't seen that in any deployment plan. And so I'm wondering if we should update this, Carl and the committee update the grant activities to make sure that we're not tying ourselves to doing something that we're no longer planning to do because of what we've discovered in the last 14 months.
Correct. And yeah, I can explain that to Tammy when I contact her.
What was it that Tammy was saying to you about the urgency of having this signed right now, Carl?
It was dated when she sent it to me. It was dated for the 16th, so I was under the impression that it needed to be signed by that day.
Oh.
So that's why the urgency was really for me. But when talking about doing the board meeting and bringing it before the board, that that was that that was fine. But yeah, I agree with Supervisor Fant that we should see if we can prolong that to December just to prolong the project.
And Carl, for example, the outcome says 2,900 people are gonna get service, but the SEC's changed the rules since their decision back in March. And so we might be able to get more people on there, you know. And so I think that grant activities and outcomes thing need to be reviewed, updated based on what the deployment plan is saying.
That's a good idea.
All right. And that
Okay.
Mike needs to help us with, and I think
Yeah.
Lockerbie might have it. That's why we're using Lockerbie to help Michael get the deployment plan to us, because
Yeah.
we need that final agreement.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I can. I'll reach out to Tammy first, and then once I run that by her, then we can send this agreement to Lockerbie to have him review it.
Yeah, let's just, from this point forward, Carl, anything that has to do with broadband that we're having legal review, let's use Mike.
Okay.
Just to be consistent, not that Steve couldn't do it, just
Oh yeah, I agree.
we want one consistent set of eyes looking at how this one might affect another one or another one.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. And that really doesn't go into effect until they sign it. So we get it first, we sign it, they get it back and sign it. So.
Once it's signed, though, then the reporting requirements kick in, and so if we sign it too early, then all of a sudden the reporting will
Shoot ourselves in the foot, yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, we don't wanna make us create work before we need to do work.
Yeah.
Correct.
Important or not.
Correct.
Okay, this can mean more people and it'd be good.
And then maybe the second to the last question is, and Lisa, this may be for you. Lisa, this question may be for you. There's a thing in here, centralized application and management system. Are you certified on that?
Are you talking about CAM?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So that's, you would file all that stuff.
I do for other DHCD projects, yes.
Okay. And then the last is, there's in the back of it, it talks about some filing, financial statement filing requirements based on the thresholds of dollar amounts. The CPA has to be involved, independent CPA, depending on the threshold. Is that Cox, or whatever, them folks?
Yes, for a single audit, yes.
Are they our people, and so that cost associated with whatever they gotta do to certify this body grant, is that built in somewhere in our broadband budget?
Not in the broadband budget, that's built in the county's operating budget.
Or this specific grant was already included?
It's all grants included. We have a single audit every year.
Okay. But I mean, just because of this additional increase it's not gonna bust the budget on that?
It shouldn't, no, sir.
Okay, that's all I got on that. So I'd recommend, Mr. Chairman, we table it, until we get staff does some additional with that.
Okay, motion table, favor second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Okay, we'll table the Vader agreement. Next on new business, you can talk about the CARES Act. Right?
Sure. So you all received an email from Kelly Wilmore asking for the board to consider a slightly different approach with more money involved for hazard pay for teachers and other details within that document. And the board had requested that we have a discussion about what he's asking for, and so we do have a little bit of information that from a CARES Act legality standpoint, Lisa, can you share what our findings are in that aspect?
Bonuses are not allowed. Hazard pay is allowed for certain, positions within the county, just as defined by the guidelines that we received from the Treasury, from the U.S. Treasury, and then that's been echoed by the, Wilmore says that he knows of other agencies, other jurisdictions surrounding us that have allowed, their teachers to be included in a one-time, payment for hazard. I will have to do more research to find out how that occurred under the guidelines and, whether or not that is, acceptable.
But my reading of it was, I thought he was wanting to do it for the whole body, everybody. Did I misread that? I thought it was for the whole school.
It's for the teachers, right?
Teachers, janitors, and just, bus drivers, and it was everybody.
But I mean, I think he even, I may have misread it or made some logic leaps, but I thought admin was in there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I just looked at how the county did it, you know, with the deputies and the social service folks and the public works folks, and I guess the big question is, I guess the first question is, we got 1.3 at the beginning of this, we got another 1.3, right? The school system got a certain amount at the beginning.
Absolutely.
But they didn't get a second infusion, is that right?
I think they're,
Yeah.
Had the governor in his speech
Yeah.
the other day said that there's gonna free up, he was gonna earmark $200-some million to go to education.
Yeah, I emailed that to you in Virginia Business, that article. It didn't state how much they were getting, but the
They're gonna get,
governor was gonna send it out to the schools.
and he has a second batch, doesn't there a second batch of CARES money coming in later for them?
I'm not as, versed in how the schools are receiving their CARES
We got our hands full with our
I
own.
have my hands full with what we can do with that first.
Then the second iteration of 1.3, what's our plan? The only thing I know is we're buying a dump truck. The garbage truck. But I don't know about the other sector. You alluded in your.
Yeah.
Money's tight.
Yep, money's tight. We still have to, we've just put out the application for the not-for-profits. So there's gonna be a significant amount of money going to the not-for-profits. Lisa and her folks have put that out. That went out, what, yesterday?
Today.
Today, okay.
Remind me what that is?
It's a grant application, much like the nonprofit or the, small business recovery. However, this is for nonprofit organizations, so this would be the applications for the food banks, for our fire rescue, that sort of thing. Right now, I've earmarked $300,000, very similar to what we did for the, first round of the small business recovery committee, those rounds. So we'll see, they just went out, we'll start accepting those applications, tomorrow, actually.
so this is the fire rescue.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's the next piece is the EMS, helping EMS. And then the third piece is just reimbursing the departments that have reported, losses associated with COVID-19. And what Lisa's alerting me to is that it may seem like a whole lot of money that we still have left, but there's a lot of money that's committed or that could be committed. And what I've asked her to do is to give me a number, a ballpark number on that by the end of this week, so that we'll have a better picture of what's really left.
And that's what I've been doing.
And it's just a guess in the end because we don't know how many not-for-profits are gonna apply, but we can get a general guess on it.
Well, and that's what I've been working on while you guys were busy with executive session.
Bill,
Go ahead, Tom.
Bill, what are we hearing from the EMS and fire people? What's the amount of money we're talking about there?
Go ahead. We're trying to see if we can get the volume up a little bit for you, Tom.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
So Mitch or Lisa, what are you guys hearing on the EMS front?
I didn't know because now that the money, the request was going out, and that's what I asked her to follow this so we could tell.
Yeah.
So, and that just happened today, so I don't know.
I what kinds of, I've been having conversations about this for months, so what have we, what have we officially heard, what are we hearing?
I'm hearing from our fire departments, the one fire and rescue, the ones that have, had fundraisers up to this point, summertime fundraisers, we're kicking into the fall fundraisers. On average, from what I've heard from, is around $20,000 per agency.
40,000? 20,000.
Per agency.
Can you hear us, Tom?
Yeah, that's, I think we need to go back on the Mount Rogers particularly because we've missed the maple syrup. We've missed the apple butter in the fall. They basically have had a whole year with no festivals.
Yeah.
Right.
And I can tell you, they bring in about 40 to 45 grand off the festivals typically per year.
Right.
So 20 grand is, I don't think that's going to cut it, Bill.
Uh-huh.
Well,
And I know rugby missed their huge festival up at the park. So somehow we need to get our hands around that. I mean, I agree with all these nonprofits, but if my house catches on fire, I want somebody to show up.
Well, that's what we believe the money that we have, most of the money that's left, what we're proposing to you all is that money be spent primarily on the not-for-profits and EMS and reimbursing ourselves. And then if we have something left at the end, we can go back and see what we want to do with it.
And I can have a conversation with Paul on about
Okay.
stressing. He probably needs to go to each agency.
Well, but I gotta tell you, man, and like Tom said, we've been talking about this since March.
Yeah.
We've asked Paul.
Yeah.
Since March.
Yeah,
I
she's got
had
it.
Then what is it? That was the
I
question.
told you, I said it was $20,000 is the average that I'm getting. I've gotten reports
all
from each agency. The rescues are not quite so big, but the fire departments are $20,000. Now, currently, the application that's gone out is for $10,000. That is for $10,000 or $5,000, depending on if they're serving Grayson County or not. So the nonprofits and the fire rescue are combined at this point. Now, that is, still discretionary for, if we do more for a fire rescue, that's perfectly within our discretion to do so.
Well, I think we should. I definitely think we should do something for fire and rescue.
Yeah. So Lisa, were you talking about 20,000 being for like food banks?
No, that is the loss that I have received, and we have been working on this all summer.
Uh-huh.
The loss average that I'm hearing on real numbers is $20,000. That's the loss that's your average.
For who?
For our fire department.
All of them?
Yes, sir.
Well, somebody's lost their mind. That's $20,000 on the Maple Syrup Festival.
Well, and maybe
that includes.
Maybe that is not all inclusive, but at the time that I collected this information, it was $20,000, and that has increased. I have heard some other departments saying, "Hey, we couldn't have this. Could you add on so much more?"
Yeah. Who did you get that information from, Lisa?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't know the individual person. I know the departments, but I do not know the individual person.
Well, Bill, I will contact Troutdale, Rugby, and White Top in the morning and talk to the chief of the fire and chief of rescue, and I will get us a number. It'll be done by tomorrow afternoon.
That'd be great.
Because I can tell you, $20,000 is a joke. I don't know where it came from. And Lisa, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying whoever gave you the number doesn't have the whole picture or something. I mean, I don't know where the miscommunication is.
It came from the agency themselves, so we're not making up anything.
I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm just saying when I attend those agency meetings and I look at their budgets and I know what they're getting from their festivals, unlike Kelly Wilmore, our agencies have a tendency to understate their needs and barely get by. So I think we need to let them know that they need to be realistic in projecting what it is they need based on what it is historically over the last couple of years they've brought in from their festivals. Because
Exactly.
basically they've gone a year without festivals is what it is.
And that is exactly the same information that I asked for, and I have that in my office.
Okay.
So for planning though, if we double that figure and say 40,000 per agency, then you can sequester, whatever that comes out to, $360,000.
I can.
Of that fund, CARES fund, for the fire and rescue side.
I can, and if you want that separate and apart from nonprofit, then
I think so.
Yeah, I think so
In
too.
my mind, I think Tom's saying the same thing, is that from a prioritization standpoint, if we fund nobody else, we gotta fund the fire and rescue.
Okay.
And double is closer to the Fiddler's Connection at Elk Creek.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, is that's why I think even if you bump it up to be even safer, just plan for 50 and then we can, 50K per agency, and then we can always, it wasn't that much, so we can bring it back, but, if they can justify it close, man, a lot of these agencies could use that money.
And that is the thing, we will have to have it justified.
Yeah, no problem, they need to do that.
Whether it's 20,000 or 50,000 or,
But for
it has to
planning,
be demonstrated.
If we plan for, 450K, if you go with the $50,000 number, you've at least identified, sequestered that amount of the CARES Act fund to be able to address it.
And that is exact feedback that I need.
Yeah.
If we can just pick a number, it was 9 agencies, is that right?
That's,
Yeah.
9 and 7, is that right?
They're all together.
Total is, I thought it was,
Total, 9. Right?
The 7 of them is just rescue, and 2 or 3 of them got rescue and fire both together. Right? I've got it in there on my wall.
Yeah, it's fire department, they're not included in there.
No.
Well, Elk Creek and Independence, the fire and rescue are separate.
They are, right. Well, let's just
Release them. I think Paul is included in the fire department, because they serve part of Grayson County. So he's gonna be talking to you about that. And also, that's Grayson's services, Fairview and Oak Day.
whatever the number comes out to, first responders that we need to support, however you package it. I think we identified, I'll throw out 50K, we say that, and then we sequester that money for that, and then once we get better fidelity, then we can adjust off of that, but at least it gives us another pot of money to be able to play with.
Yeah.
But, so I'm clear, the first batch of the money, the 1.3, the first 1.3, is that committed now? Or do we, so it's all, it may not be spent, but it's committed.
Yes, sir.
So we're into the second 1.3.
Yes.
Okay, so now we've got 850 or something left to play around with.
Right, that's the number that I was actually playing with when I came back in here.
So whatever left after fire rescue.
Right. But that does include, that's all encompassing. If I need to go get my report to list off what is encumbered, I'll be happy to do that.
Now, when you mentioned the food banks, we budgeted, we appropriated in the budget money for the food banks.
Yes.
Are they saying they need additional money?
That's what this application process is.
So we don't know, okay.
Was there other small business that put in for the first deal and we run out of money that's still out there?
No, all of that money, all $420,000 has been, spent for the.
So the first 300 and the second 120 has been spent.
I understand it's been spent, but it was a application in the first round that didn't get anything.
No.
So everybody got
Yes.
to put in. I thought the word was that there was some that had put in and we ran out of money.
Before the 120,000 additional appropriation, that was true, but the 120,000 took care of those.
Okay.
Which was about, 40 or so additional beyond that first 100. So,
30 and 40 didn't. They've all been taken care of.
so rough math, we have about 650K remaining after you put the pot of money up for the first responders, and then the pot of money, 300K that Lisa mentioned for nonprofits, right? 300K, right? But in your math, did that 300K include the first responders, or
Yes,
is it?
it did in my math, it did. So if you wanna expand that, then I need to add,
Well, let's hold that, again, let's hold where that is right now. You know, who knows what it's gonna be? Because nonprofits, there's a lot of them, you know,
There's about 100 according to the IRS.
right? So if we get $3,000 each, then it's gone. So the remainder is what I guess we had the discussion about as far as related to what else we got out there. Don't we have part of that money going for a garbage truck?
That's already been encumbered in my numbers.
Right, in the previous batch or this batch? The first
Kinda
allocation?
It actually kinda crossed, so.
Okay. But it still brings down that 650K now. Now you're down to, what do you say it costs, $250,000? Yeah.
It's already,
It's already in my math. I've already taken it.
Yeah, but so what are you saying, what, in your math, what are you saying we have left?
Let me go get my spreadsheet, because I was just working on it, so
Okay.
let me go get it.
Okay. Because what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, the request here is from the school system, and his request was for something like $718,000 or something. Right. Big money. Right. But I'm not opposed to the idea like we did, but I've got to get a better handle on what money he's receiving. Yeah. Like Mike just said about, you know, if the governor and Brenda said that the governor is going to send more money their way, well, okay, then let's see what that looks like before we action anything. And then you brought up the idea of the iPads or the notebooks, Chromebooks.
Students got those Thursday. Fourth graders did, I know.
Oh, really?
Excuse me. I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Brenda said, I think the fourth graders got.
I don't know who all got it, but I know the fourth grade did.
Susan Mitchell got some Virginia grant money. Susan Mitchell, who has COVID, by the way. Yeah. And her husband. She got some money, so I don't know what her final numbers that you all worked out that they need to be able to do that. We were talking about 325. 328. Is the total that they need.
Are we going? If we do that, Bill, are we going to provide them for the first graders next year? Are we going to provide computers every year?
Yeah, you know, Tom, I had that discussion with Susan about the sustainment side of it, and she feels pretty comfortable that given the life cycle of those, and my understanding that her number was going to have some additional computers built in for ones that get broken or lost or whatever. But the life cycle of those, she agrees that you got to put some on a sustainment, so you replace a certain amount every year. But she felt like the grant money that is out there that they've gotten, they feel will sustain the purchase. So they can handle with the grant money they get through the technical side of things in the school system, that the money is there to sustain the program. That's my recollection of our conversation.
Well, John, my email response about this, I think we're a year ahead of ourselves. Because if I had a school-age kid, it'd be a waste of money to give them an iPad.
What Susan said is what their plan is to equip the classroom, not the student. And therefore the schools are wired, the homes are not, to acknowledge your point. And so
if that's the case, what they're trying to do is be able to use the machines in the classroom, and then as the broadband expands across the county, then you begin to potentially be able to send them home. The advantage of being able to send them home, I think, as we talked last time, and Mitch had brought up previously, was, you know, you eventually eliminate snow days if you've got the connectivity out there. But her sense was that if the approach that they're taking of equipping the classroom versus the individual is the way they go, then they're ready to receive the equipment now.
And, you know, the other thing for us, Tom, is that I think your point's well made. It's an opportunity that we have if we, you know, that has a deadline of, what is it, December 30th, Lisa? So even if it is early, it's money that we have to give back if we don't make that commitment on it.
Well, my basic opposition to government today, Bill, you just stated. It just grates on my nerves to know that just because money's available, we got to spend it or we're going to lose it.
Yeah.
That is not the reality of the real world. That's government, and that's just I don't like it. And here we are being a participant in it. But I feel better. I feel better hearing John's comments that Susan provided, because if they're equipping the classroom and are going to use them in class as the primary resource, that's fine. But if it is to take the kid and to start channeling so much of their readings, their research, their reference material, you know, all of this, when they leave the classroom, then it's a joke for a year and a half, 2 years. And I would vote against spending the money. But I think, John, if what you're saying makes more sense to me than what I guess, assumed from the email I read.
Yeah, I posed the very question that you brought up in your email to her. I said, you know, are we jumping the gun here? Because, yeah, it's great, we got this money, we're gonna buy these machines, but we can't use them because we don't have the connectivity yet. And that was her counter, was they're equipping the classroom with the potential of deploying them home if, when the connectivity gets there.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to me. That makes a lot more sense.
I've gone through, looked at everything that we have paid, every bill that has been entered that is sitting there ready to pay, so it's receipts actually. I've accounted for both of the transfers to the EDA, all of the share that we promised to the town. The nonprofit assistance I have sitting at $300,000. In my mind, that included fire rescue. Okay. The trash truck is accounted for. The laptops that we have ordered that we have not received are accounted for. We have a couple more emergency vehicles that I have encumbered, whether or not the one I think was ordered today, one we're still working on the justification for that. The Chromebooks for the schools, I saw that number at $368,000. I went ahead and encumbered that amount. The touchless plumbing I know that has been ordered, that should be here just any time it's coming in piecemeal. Touchless plumbing. Plumbing.
Washing your hands.
Washing your hands, the touchless faucet. Touchless
So,
that, the soap dispensers,
Okay.
touchless.
I got big ears, but they don't work for me.
Okay. I've incorporated that, and then I've also went ahead and figured out our average for hazard pay based on March through August. We're always a month behind on that, the way the timesheets come in.
For the people that are getting it,
Yes.
designated to get it now.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've also included that, and that leaves us at $576,000 $577,000 remaining.
Say that last number.
About 577 remaining.
But you gotta pay hazard pay through December, right?
I've already,
Oh,
So but that number doesn't include the going to 450,
Well, so if we
right?
put the first responders in there, we're at zero balance. If you go with the 450 number of,
if you do that for them individually. Now, I had included them in the 300,000.
no, but I think that's what we're saying, is that we think that number is gonna be, higher. So if you go with, just for planning, 50K per agency,
Right, it's
and there's
550,000.
there's 450,000, right?
but you already had 3 of that.
No, but, yes, but in the nonprofits,
Oh, yeah.
then we sequester that 300K for the nonprofits, and we'll see where that goes. Because then we always can roll that back to somewhere else if folks don't need, as much.
Right. And that's not paying us back for what we spent before this CARES money come in. That doesn't pay us back.
Pay back to what?
The encumbrances that we had before we knew we were getting CARES money, that's not paying the county back for our CARES, or our COVID-related expenses.
Are we allowed to do that?
We
Yeah.
are allowed to do that, but I did save us for last.
Well, how much is that looking like? Do we have a sense?
No, not right now. I actually have to go through each expenditure and count that out.
It's like computers for people that needed to work remote and that sort of thing is what it was. It's not a massive amount of
It's not a
money.
massive amount, no. I'm thinking about 50,000. And that's an estimate.
Plus, every agency has the 5% that we, or roughly, that we pull, from the current budget and said, put in.
That's right.
We pull that,
In the contingency
everybody's
fund.
budget by
Right.
5%, so that money's still sitting out there.
Yes,
Yep.
and I have not even
That's
considered
another
that.
1.3.
Yeah.
So in my mind, instead of using CARES Act money for that money we've already had that they've incurred, that you could begin to flow that back.
Possibly. There is if we do choose to pay ourselves back, that does free up money that would actually flow backwards to FY20, to fiscal year 20, which would then allow, that money is just, expenditure reimbursement. It's then, we don't have any rules for that money. But if we do choose to pay ourselves back, that does open up the opportunity for, the board to decide, what, all of our employees deserve a little something extra during this time. You could do a bonus, and it could be called a bonus with that money that's once reimbursed, it served its purpose. That is one option that is available if we pay ourselves back, if we're afforded that opportunity.
Didn't we have 2% raise anymore?
You know what? I truly
Well,
don't remember.
the idea, or I can't think of the word I want to use, that I've sort of recommended to you all is not to remove that contingency money until we remove the emergency, declaration.
Yeah.
I think those two go hand in hand.
Right.
Because we don't know, we still don't know how, it looks like everything's smoothing out, but we could have associated,
Not on Pine Mountain.
not with what?
Not on Pine Mountain. They had several 7 or 8 cases up there.
Really?
Springfield Church. Ricky Edwards, his wife, Jimmy Jones, there's about 6 or 7 up there.
Wow.
Not Springfield.
Not Springfield, you go to Springfield.
I go to Springfield.
No, the one up, what's the one up on,
Yeah,
Pine Mountain Road?
Pine Mountain.
Yeah,
Bill, I think it's wise to sit on that money because I was reading a report from the Ballard Health System today,
Yeah.
and just in the last 3 weeks, the trending has exceeded any 3-week period in the since this thing started.
Wow.
And they're now saying the second wave is going to lead to more cases and more deaths during the fall and into early winter than we've seen thus far.
Good
And
grief.
unless there's and the only thing that may impact that is if a vaccine can hit the market. But even if it does, getting it to enough people to stem the tide is going to be very difficult. So I personally think we're being smart to kind of hold some in reserve because this thing's not over.
Right.
So Lisa, I guess we started out talking about the school request, but based on the numbers that we just went through, we don't have any money to support the school request above the Chromebooks that we've already agreed to buy.
Not at this time, I don't think so.
So there's the answer.
Okay.
And plus, I mean, he just showed me the article in the government saying, what was it, 220 million?
220, each, the 132 school districts are guaranteed at least 100,000.
Okay.
Divvied out between the 132 school districts, so.
But I don't disagree with Wilmore's, the hazardous duty pay, but I think they've got it's a good idea we've done it. But I think they gotta look at how they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
The other thing I would like to bring up, and this gets back to the other issue with the building, but, the requests that come up here, I get a sense that the school board may not have voted on the request or the action. And so I think when a proposal like this hits your inbox, the response should be, well, take it to your board, have them vote on it, and at least we begin to get a prioritization.
Okay.
I'm just thinking through how do we work with the school system to try to fund the things that are really important. It's not, everything in his email was not a bad idea, but where are we gonna get the money to do it? And I would like to know the school board's position on in record.
Okay.
So that we know that it's not staff talking to staff sort of thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Good idea.
And it might have avoided some of the issues we had, with trying to get money over from the school building.
Yeah.
That's my idea. I don't know, it just occurred to me while over these last couple of issues, but I just throw that out there. Something I think would be good.
Did you find anything about Carroll County?
Not yet.
That was the deal, Carroll County gives $750,000 for hazardous pay to the teachers and the kids. Why we didn't do that? So that's what we're on our way.
Well, we are we're making sure that we're doing everything by the rules down to the T, and we don't see, from what we've been told, we don't see at this time that that's something that fits into the guidelines.
I'll do further research, but it doesn't fit with the guidelines that we had to go by.
While you're looking, can you find out if Carroll County did that?
Yes, I will.
Not saying we won't do anything like Carroll County did.
Well, Virginia as a whole had the lowest number of cases today that they've had in over 2 weeks, 690. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
So again, I like the idea, I agree, they're like our public works folks and our deputies, the teachers aides, the janitors and all that stuff, but, what's the school board's priority? I mean, they could easily come and say, well, we'd rather have the hazard pay than the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think.
If we can do it, if we are allowed to do that.
Yeah, right, and I mean, I'd heard that a while back that, Carroll County was buying a rescue vehicle or something like that, and it didn't necessarily meet the things, and I think we can't go wrong if we follow the guidelines.
Right.
And so I'm comfortable with that as long as it's in fact what the guidelines say.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the CARES Act? real estate assessment?
Yeah, this is just an idea, you know, I think last budget cycle, before this thing really kicked into gear, we kind of agreed to delay the budget or the, real estate assessment for 2 years or something, instead of doing it at the 4th year. But with the way the market is right now, you know, Ken, and my wife's in the real estate business, but, you know, it's on fire, you know, and so if we look at how do we generate revenue going forward, we've only got 2 levers, raise the levy or hope that real estate values go up. Well, maybe we need to think about doing we've already put the money aside, I think, somewhere to do the assessment. And so maybe we need to think about, is it time to go ahead and do the assessment now? Is the market conditions the best for the county, in the next, 6 to 12 months, that it would make sense to go ahead and do the assessment? That's the idea that I wanted to throw out here to the board, and see what we thought. And I know Ken's in the business, so he would have a little better insight than I do, but.
I think we'll maybe already turning on that.
Like what,
The
Commissioner Revenue?
Commissioner of Revenue talking to the company that does that and all.
Is it up to him to pull the trigger on that, or is it up to us?
I think we're to the point where we voted to do the 2 years, and then after that, it's 6 years, and after that, you don't have any more leverage. You have to do it within 6 years. So I think we're at that 6-year point, and he's starting to put the wheels in motion. I don't know where he's at in the process.
Well, we passed the 4-year from the last one. We're in the last 2 years of the 6.
And I think we may have been in the last year of the 2.
So we're in the 6th year?
Yeah, so, we just have to check on that.
Well, that's all I'm asking is if the conversation started, that's great. It just,
We can check on it, Bill.
Yeah.
But I think it may already, the wheels may already.
Okay.
right.
It won't be the same one that did it the last time, will it?
I don't know, I'm not sure who Larry got this, who it is this time. Okay.
I think that's chosen through, the Commissioners Association.
Oh, okay.
Something like that, or it maybe even Mount Rogers Planning
It's
Commission.
Mount Rogers Planning District. I think that basically chooses, and I think, the commissioner still can go to, I think he wants or whatever. So we can check on that.
Okay.
Find out who it is and when it's at.
That's it. That's the only thought.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
I apologize for doing this, but something just ran across my mind. When we go back to the fire and rescue agencies, make sure we ask them to not only document their festivals, but all of their bingos, their potluck suppers, all of those events that they host in the community to raise money.
Okay.
Because they basically have not been able to do any of that.
Yeah.
And while you don't raise as much on a bingo as you would a fall festival, you may raise $2 or $3 grand. And so I want to make sure that we're asking the right question, because because like I said, these people are not going to be like our buddy at the school who assumes he needs more money than he's got. These folks are very conservative, self-reliant, or whatever, and they're going to give you a to-the-letter response to whatever you ask. And if you ask them for festival revenue, they're going to give you festival revenue. They're not going to give you anything else. So make sure we ask a broad enough question to ensure that we're really understanding what's the cash flow they've lost this year from all of their fundraising activities.
Okay.
I mean, and Lisa, we may have done that, but I just was thinking, I didn't know if we had. That may be one of the reasons the numbers are bouncing a little bit.
Okay, that is the question that I asked, whether or not they did think of everything and report everything. I can't answer to that question.
Okay, all right.
Since you brought this back up, I want to make sure that I have the right frame of thought, make sure that I get the right guidance. The application that I just put out, I'm going to have that for nonprofits only. But for fire rescue, I'm gonna create almost an identical application process for that with these details that we've discussed tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Yeah, you need it, right? You need the application to be able to show what the money,
Yes, I
you need
have,
some documentation.
I do. I
And
have
since
to
we're
have
treating the two
documentation. And
Two
since
groups with
they're
different
no longer
monetary
being treated the same,
Yeah.
because they're being treated differently.
That's a
And
great
that will
question.
be up to $50,000, but that has to be demonstrated. Am I,
Yeah.
is that what I'm hearing, to make sure?
Yes. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Some of them might get 30 or 40, and some be.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly. And Lisa, thank you for doing that.
you're welcome.
I can see, like on the food bank, pretty much double.
Wow.
I don't know the numbers from last Thursday, but the Thursday before in Elk Creek, it was over 500 boxes given away.
Wow.
They were in the cul-de-sac, around back, down the driveway, and on the rock road, waiting in line for boxes. There's a need out there.
Absolutely.
When's your work session?
Yeah. Well, we, through the coronavirus and maybe beyond that, we all discussed the need to have a quarterly report on what's going on with the budget. In particular, I think what may have spurred us on was thinking about the money that we put in contingency and making sure that we're sort of checking on where things stand, so we didn't wait a full year before we checked out what's happening in the budget process. So what we've done is prepare the first quarter of the year for you all to review. Lisa and I went through every line item. There are a few line items that are higher than 25%. I think almost all of them have to do with one-time purchases. Something you have to buy, you buy at the beginning of the year, and you don't have to expend any more on it. So
Insurance.
it'll even, like insurance and things like that. But the thing that stood out to us the most was the CSA expenditures. But we talked with Kristen, and Lisa and Kristen had been talking about this last year. There's a component of the reporting that occurs that sort of goes over the 2 years, and it skews the number. Can you explain it, Lisa?
Yes. We're on a cash-based accounting system. However, we have an offset for expenditures that's modified accrual, which means even though your fiscal year is over on June 30th, you still have 3 months or 90 days to accrue expenses back. Okay. Our system commingles those monies. So if there were, even though all of the bills are paid out on June 30th, you may get, say, the phone bill that was for June in July. The same thing happens with CSA. So for 90 days, those invoices are still coming in for fiscal year 20. When we pay those, it doesn't, the cash accounting system that we're using has no choice except to show up in fiscal year 21. Now, the auditors pull that back out. But as far as looking at reports, you're seeing commingled years for the first 90 days. Does that explain?
So from what DSS reported to us, their CSA expenditures are only slightly above what they would have expected for the first quarter of the year.
Right.
And from our perspective, obviously you all may feel different, but we didn't see anything that wasn't explainable as far as the variation was concerned. And we feel very positive about where we stand at this quarter of the year.
The, one question I had, I think it had to do with the sheriff's department. one line that he had, it was like, his budget is $475 or something, and it's well over budget. And so the question is not so much the details about that, but does the department head have the authority to approve exceeding the budget for an individual line item as long as they don't have, they don't bust the overall budget?
Right.
Yes. Now, since you brought up the sheriff's office, I got word this morning of their 6th deputy and 7th employee leaving in the last 30 days, within the last 30 days.
Say again that number?
6 deputies, 7 employees have left, resigned.
So a total of 13?
No, a total of 7, 6 deputies, 7 total altogether.
I think one's a communications officer.
Yes, 1 dispatcher, 6 deputies. They are, and of course, each of those they've been here a while to need a payout for their vacation and sick leave, and that's happening. They're hurting already.
So what's that leaving with deputies? What's he got? What's his force now?
I think there's 28, so that's 6
22.
deputies.
So it's now 22?
I think so. Now, he's hired back 2. He's hired back 2.
Do we know the reason why they left?
The state police did a lateral transfer, which made it real appealing to a lot of officers who had, over 5 years or more experience where they could laterally transfer to the state police and do like an abbreviated academy, like only 8 weeks.
That was 3 of them.
Yeah, that was 3 of them. So that was part of it, and then,
The other 3 is on the other neighboring department.
yeah, they would agencies.
We don't conduct, I don't know, we don't conduct exit interviews for constitutional officers.
How does that compare with what it's been like in the past?
Unheard of.
I was sitting down and figured out how many had left in several years. Pretty substantial number.
It's unheard of for that many to leave at one time. I've been over 20 years, I've never heard of that before.
How many deputies did Jerry have?
18.
And then we got down to that hit. We got less people, same territory, all the same.
But do keep that in mind, we will see the need for an adjustment because of these, payouts.
Is that money, do we have that money just, in case this happens? Maybe not to this number, but,
No, not to this.
so where's it come out of, his budget?
It comes out of his budget, yes, sir.
Is that 28, SRO,
So should there be, that brings a question, should there be a line item that is like a vacancy line item? I don't know what you'd call it. In healthcare, they probably call it a vacancy line item that you can you can predict that you're gonna lose, 2 people per year or something along those lines. That's
Kind of a contingency plan?
yeah.
We do have that. We have, it's in personnel administration. It's listed on page 2. That's where we have our health insurance contingency, our unemployment insurance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's where we could put something like that.
Okay. It's almost like insurance on keeping employees, or I don't know what.
Yes, to have that in case you do have
Yeah.
to have.
And just plan on that, because we want to try to, as much as we can, plan for everything that happens, especially those things that we know are recurring on an annual basis.
Right. That's a good idea. I'll make a note So
Okay.
add that into our planning for the 22
We'll
budget
have that
cycle.
hit, we're gonna have that hit public works a few years from now.
Yeah, and
Because of
the
age?
retirements, you kind of know what's coming, but these, we weren't prepared for.
We'll have a big pay out there, because they got that. Fort Gleason knows more about it than I do, something about that.
They have a local retirement.
So we need to plan for that. You know, we know something like that's coming. Let's make sure that
Yeah, local retirement.
we are planning for that.
But this was out
No,
of the blue.
sure.
Out of the blue.
Sure.
I saw the electoral board has gone over in their postage, I kind of figured that, those kinds of things.
Now, they do, the electoral board did receive $58,000 of their very own CARES money that they may
Oh, good.
use for that, so we'll see how that plays out. 58,000.
Who's the,
Good.
we had an interim, registrar?
Oh, they hired them.
They hired someone.
Yeah.
Ready.
J license. J license. Thank you.
Who's part-time over there, I think. The other question on the budget, the way it's laid out, budgeted column, Lisa,
Yes, sir.
is that the figure after we took out the 5% reduction?
Yes.
So that's what it is. And then I think the last question I had is I know we created line items for the CARES Act, but is that not tracked in this now that we created it?
Yes, I only printed out the report for the general fund,
Okay,
which is what we were discussing tonight.
right, got it. Okay.
Yes, you can see that anytime.
You have a question?
No, it seems like we're on, I mean,
We're in good
it
shape.
seems like the numbers look pretty good, we're within ballpark.
Nothing really raised an alarm for me. A couple of vehicle expense lines, and again, Mitch and Bill and I went all through these. If something was, out of character or anything like that, we pulled it in and looked at it specifically.
Yeah.
There was I called Carl about the professional services for GIS. That's Esri, that's the mapping system. It's actually supposed to have been part of that in last year's budget that came due in this year's budget. So just kind of one-off, that we're not greatly concerned about right now. And because of the date that I ran this, some of this, even the insurances, workers' comp is paid on a quarterly. You'll see that those 46%, 40-some percent, that's really at half a year, at 3 quarters. So I was not floored by anything that I saw, but I did want to give you the heads up on the sheriff's office. They've really taken a hit in their payout.
So no adjustments at this time recommended by the staff?
Right.
Other than to sustain I keep using the word sequestration, I don't know why it's stuck in my head.
Contingency.
The contingency fund.
Yeah.
Sustain that for another quarter at least.
Yeah, and I think when going into this, we thought the time to really take a real close look at that, of whether to free up anything, would be January of next year. That way we would have a real feel for whether there was a second wave, and it would give us a chance to. And that's what we told the departments as we were doing this, was that we didn't tell them it'd be freed up in January. We just said we'll take a look at it again in January. It should be our next quarterly meeting with you on the budget would be
Right.
January, right?
Would be.
This is October, November, December, January, yeah.
Two, I double checked with the treasurer today just to see where we were with, the only payday we've had is for personal property. We're just a tick higher, in those collections. Last year, this same time was 74.53%. Currently, we're at 74.67%, so just a 0.25% higher. So that's, or right at
Yeah, that's great.
4%. So that's good. If the real estate numbers look as good on December 5th as the personal property numbers do, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But are you saying that we have roughly 25% people didn't pay?
So far, we're just looking at today compared to today in 2019.
But the due date is September, or whatever.
Correct. That's August.
August, yeah.
August.
August, that's right.
So it's still comparable.
And
Looking at day to
I
day.
took a call today, want to pay personal property, there's still people calling in. He said, I need to pay my personal property, will you transfer me to the treasurer's office? So we're still getting those calls. And especially when they go to DMV and get this stop.
Well, that's good though, that given the economic situation, we're still trending in the same,
Yeah.
really no.
Yeah, we were really pleased with that.
It was heartwarming to me to know that people maybe are not suffering as much as what we had feared.
Anything else on the budget? Look for motion.
Before you adjourn, Mr. Chairman, I got notes here from Linda. The organizational meeting she wanted to, evidently, I didn't even know what's in my package, I'll turn it. Organizational meeting Monday, January the 4th, or Tuesday, January the 5th. I guess she's basically wanting to off so she can get it on the calendar.
Next year.
Yeah, she got it on here, organizational meeting, 4th or the 5th, whichever, a Monday or a Tuesday, whichever one y'all want to do the organization.
Monday or Tuesday, you said?
Yes. January the 4th or January the 5th. But we're supposed to do this quickly in January as possible. I think we're going to move over to Jack Matthews, James.
Either one's good for me.
Either one's good for me.
I got a clear calendar. I ain't doing next year yet. I'm good either way.
5th.
So pick the 5th, Tuesday the 5th. I'll circle that one, tell her to put it on the calendar. And the other
Mine's
thing,
not that clear.
the other thing she wanted me to mention was our next quarterly work session. And it'll probably become a part of the budget calendar, but it would be Monday, January the 25th. And that will probably be just part of the calendar, budget calendar we put out, but it would be a quarterly, the next quarterly budget session on Monday, January the 25th. She wanted me to tell you that day. Did you get that, Supervisor Rebel?
Certainly did.
Okay, thank you. That's all
Still
I have.
doing ethics training Thursday?
And Linda just sent out an email with the Zoom link.
You did? Oh, I thought that was.
It's all the same, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you information.
Oh, this.
I may not be able to participate, I'll try to. I gotta have a little procedure. Switched it up on, was on the 15th.
I just got through with that training.
Oh, you did? This is part 2.
What else, Mitch? That's it? All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All right.
Aye.